Alright then, petal heads. I won't call these jobs for February because I read an article recently, although I actually kind of wish I hadn't, life's too short. I did read an article though, where someone was moaning about the negativity towards gardening because of words like jobs. Jobs for your garden, jobs for this weekend in your garden, jobs for the month of February for your garden. So we won't call them jobs, we'll just call them things to do. Although I do think that the person that wrote the article just needs to chill and actually stop writing articles and just go in your garden a bit more often, and you might find it enjoyable. So what I'm doing here is not a job on the buddleia, it's a pleasurable task. Yes, I like that, pleasurable task. I am cutting back the buddleia to about 1-foot high canes, and I'm cutting them back to just above a set of new growth, and in that way this year all the flowers will come from that new growth. The next pleasurable task I'm going to involve myself with in the month of February is transplanting this rhubarb, because I've been reading another article about the dangerous chemicals that can leach out of these rubber tyres, and it's not good to eat food that's been grown in them. So I'm going to put this rhubarb out into my food forest. Now then, it is not set in stone that this job is done in February. You can do it earlier in winter. The only reason I'm doing this in February is because the plant is still dormant and the buds haven't broken yet. It's not started growing for the spring. Unlike the rhubarb I have at the allotment, which has started growing, so I wouldn't transplant that. I would only do this on a dormant rhubarb plant. This particular plant has been in that tyre for, I'm guessing, but at least 6-7 years, maybe a slight bit longer. So it's got quite a lot of roots in there. Now when I've transplanted rhubarb in the past, you can be fairly rough with it. Don't be worried about breaking off little bits of roots. The plant does seem to not really mind. If you look on screen now, you should see a card for how I divide rhubarb as well, because now would also be a good time to divide your rhubarb if you want more plants. I do recommend you do your own research about growing food crops in tyres, but please don't go into an instant panic if you, like me, have been growing food in some tyres. It's dependent on a variety of factors like the age of the tyre, the condition of the tyre, whether it's started to break apart yet, exposure to ultraviolet light, which can speed up the breaking down process, all sorts of things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become ill straight away because you've been growing food in tyres. So now I'm ready to put that rhubarb plant out into my food forest. I'm removing the bark mulch, and then I'm going to dig a hole to put the rhubarb into. Now rhubarb is quite a heavy feeder, so if you've got some really good rich compost or some well rotted manure, that kind of thing, it will do no harm to mix a bit of that into the soil that's left in the hole where you're going to plant your rhubarb. On screen now is a card for a video where I make rhubarb liqueur. It's very nice, but not for children. The planting depth I'm going for is to have the buds just above ground level. So as you can see here, initially I've not dug that hole deep enough. I have to take it out and do it a little bit deeper. Bear this in mind if you're going to add any compost or well rotted manure into the bottom of your planting hole. I'm now going to backfill around the big root ball of the rhubarb plant I've just transplanted, and then once I've backfilled, give it a really good firm down, and I'll recover the mulch. We use our rhubarb to make a liqueur with either gin or vodka, and also our Claire makes an amazing rhubarb crumble. What do you use your rhubarb for? If you've got any good recipes, let me know in a comment. Around this time of year, very late winter, just before it restarts to regrow in the spring, is not a bad time to trim back your ornamental grasses like I'm doing here with this Steeper Gigantea. And also it's a good opportunity to remove any dead grass, thatch, any debris that's got in there like the leaves that you can see I'm picking out, that kind of thing. By removing the thatch and debris, you're allowing more air to circulate around the plant. So this is the area I use for a makeshift cold frame. I normally have a piece of corrugated plastic over the top, but obviously so I could show you, I've removed it. Around about August to September last year, I planted some wallflower seeds and they've been going all in that cold frame all through the winter. It's now a good time to plant them out where you want them. For me, it's going to be in this big pot. And then as we get even closer to spring, they'll start to grow on more and we'll even get some flowers from them around about May or June. Another thing you can do before spring arrives while we're still in late winter is remove the dead flower stalks from perennial plants such as this lamb's ear. Or if you went to a posh school and want the Latin name, Stachys byzantina. Another pleasurable task you can perform in late winter is to give a little bit of feed to your shrubs. In this case, I'm doing it to a rose. They will respond very well to a little bit of slow release fertiliser. If you've got mulch down, just remove the mulch, throw the fertiliser onto the soil and then give it a little tickle just to mix it in a bit. Doing it now means that the fertiliser is just literally sitting there ready and waiting for when the plant starts to put on new growth for this season. Weeds, what are they good for? It's a bit like that song, isn't it? Weeds, huh? What are they good for? Well, feeding to your chickens is one thing, I suppose, so long as you're not giving your chickens anything that's harmful to them. But other than that, really, I don't want those weeds there. True definition of a weed is an unwanted plant in an unwanted place. So, as you can see, there's some twiggy little sticks sticking out of the ground. The one on the left is an aronia, a chokeberry bush, and the one on the right hand side is one of my slow plants. Now, I'm removing these weeds now because really soon these two plants that I want to be there are going to start growing again. So by getting rid of the weeds, I'm removing competition for those plants. And then where I've pulled the weeds out of, just in general around those plants that I want to be there, I'm adding some extra mulch. Does a couple of things. First thing it'll do, well, in no particular order, but one of the things it will do is it will create a light barrier, a light deficit, so that any more weed seeds which might be up near the surface of my mulch or in my soil underneath the mulch, if it's not deep enough, you're removing the light so that they're not going to be able to germinate and grow. The second thing it'll do is over time, those bark chippings that I'm using will decompose and they will release their nutrients into the soil around the plants that I want to be there. So long story short, weed and mulch, weed and mulch. If you, like our family does, if you use your garden not just as a place to grow somewhere, but as a place to be, a place to inhabit and just enjoy being there with each other as a family, whether you eat meals there or you just go outside and sit with each other, then it's not a bad idea to just try and keep it tidy as much as you can. Just keep on top of those little jobs that you walk past several times a day and think, oh, you know what, I just can't be bothered. Well, make yourself bothered. Every now and again, bend down, pick up the sweeping brush, scrape up that moss off your tarmac like I'm doing, and just keep it a nice place to be, because when spring comes, that is going to be your happy place. Not necessarily a piece of tarmac in a damp, shady part of a garden next to a garage, but I mean your garden. Your garden is going to be your happy place. So linking back to what I said earlier about the negativity behind words like jobs in the garden, let's call them pleasurable tasks instead. It might be winter and you might not be surrounded by a lush bountiful, abundant green paradise. However, there are things you can stop and just enjoy, like these Iris reticulatas in pots. Thank you very much for watching.